Hi friends, I'm Chelsea and I am here with my fall book haul. So I think the last book haul video I did was over the summer, like in July. And so as usual, I have brought home a fairly large number of books since my last book haul video. I think I have about 40 books here, which might have been the number of my last book haul. But that was like 4 months ago, so it's fine. Most of them are used, so I'll just say that to make myself feel better. So yeah, you know the drill. I'm just going to kind of go quickly through these because I got a lot of books here. I will do them in categories, so I have some from Little Free Libraries, most of them thrifted or from like used bookstores, and then a couple newer books. I'll just kind of go through quickly and show you what I got. I will do the Little Free Library books first. I think I have 5 or 6 books here. I kind of forgot that I got some of these, so it's good that I'm doing this so I remember what books I have, so maybe I will actually read them and not just accumulate them. So yeah, here's the first Little Free Library book. That is And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie, a classic mystery novel. I'm pretty sure I read this in middle school and I remember liking it, but I don't remember anything else. I know this is kind of like the formula for a lot of classic mysteries, so it would be fun to read again and kind of just get a fresh opinion of this book and of her writing because I would love to read more of her books. So I thought that was a fun find. The next one is Killers of the Flower Moon by David Grann, and here's another one I've actually also read. This was for book club last year, I think. I borrowed it from the library and then I found this from a Little Free Library. Thought it would be fun to own because I really enjoyed the book. It's a narrative nonfiction, so it's based on true life events that actually happened, but it's told in a very easy to read style and doesn't feel as dry as a typical nonfiction would necessarily. And so this one basically is about the Osage tribe in Oklahoma, and there were like mass murders of people within this tribe. So there's kind of like a mystery element of like, why are all these tribe members getting murdered? And this is one of the first major FBI investigations. And so yeah, it's pretty disturbing what you find out, but really well done. And there's a movie that's come out since the book as well. Okay, next up I found Born a Crime by Trevor Noah, and I have not read this one, but this is a celebrity memoir. I guess I don't know much about Trevor Noah. I know he's from South Africa, and I think he has like a TV show. That's sad that I don't know any more than that. But I know his name and I've heard of this memoir, so I might listen to this on audiobook, but sometimes it's nice to have a physical copy as well. And so I believe this is just kind of going through his life story of growing up in South Africa during the times of apartheid and just kind of a coming of age story. I always love a good celebrity memoir that especially deals with like racial and social issues, so I thought that was a fun find. So another memoir that I found is Educated by Tara Westover. This is a super popular memoir and I've never read this one. It's on my list though. Again, another one I might listen to an audiobook, but good to have the physical copy. It's hard not to pick up a book that you recognize in a Little Free Library because it's so rare that you find that. So again, I don't know a ton about this one. I do know that it's a memoir of her life, obviously, and I think she grew up in kind of this really conservative, cultish kind of environment, like really extreme, kind of crazy family situation. Let's see, she never saw a doctor or a nurse. She didn't really go to like school at all, which nothing wrong with being homeschooled. I was homeschooled, but it seems like a very extreme upbringing. And yeah, kind of just her catching up as an adult on things that she missed learning about. That's all I know. I've heard really good things and I'm excited to read it. And then the last one from a Little Free Library. This book intimidates me a little bit, but I love the cover so much and I want to read this author, so I had to pick it up. And that is Fairy Tale by Stephen King. So first of all, it's probably like 700 pages. Oh, okay, actually just under 600. That's not as bad as I thought. I've never read Stephen King, so I'm already kind of intimidated by his books. And I know this is more fantasy leaning and not as much like horror, so it's not his typical style of writing, I guess. But I am intrigued by it and I just really like how the cover looks. It's pretty cool. So it's about a 17-year-old boy who inherits the keys to a parallel world where good and evil are at war and the stakes could not be higher for that world or ours. So maybe it still has like some horror suspense elements along with the fantasy. I was excited to find this. Who knows if I'll actually read it, but it's a fun find from a Little Free Library. Okay, so my thrifted stack is quite large, so we're just going to jump into my thrifted books. Most of them are either from Goodwill or from some local used bookstores. I also have picked up several books while we were away from home after leaving from the hurricane, so random like antique stores and used bookstores and thrift shops and stuff. I love looking at different thrift stores and bookshops in other cities, so that was kind of fun to find. So the next one is Game of Thrones by George R.R. Martin. So I've seen the show, seen the whole thing, really enjoyed it. I never really considered reading the books because usually when you watch the show first, it's not as motivating to go back and read the book. But I think I saw Haley Pham, who read A Game of Thrones, the book, which I don't know if she was familiar with the show at all, but she read it and she enjoyed it for the most part. And so I was like, maybe I should read the book and see how I feel about the book versus the show. Who knows if I'll read the whole series, but this is kind of a fun find of like a very popular fantasy book with a lot of politics, a lot of just different elements going on, and so we'll see what I think. The next one is The Bean Trees by Barbara Kingsolver, which she wrote The Poisonwood Bible and Demon Copperhead, her most recent book, I think. And so I'd never heard of this book, but someone from our book club picked this and we're going to read it in the spring, I think. So I just happened to find it from Goodwill, so I figured I would pick it up so I could read it for book club. It's just about 200 pages, so really short. I think it's like historical fiction, literary fiction maybe, and I think it centers around Native American characters, I believe. Here comes Reshi. Hello, Reshi. Okay, meet Taylor Greer, clear-eyed and spirited. She grew up poor in rural Kentucky with two goals, to avoid pregnancy and to get away. She succeeds on both counts when she buys a 55 Volkswagen and heads west. Sorry if the camera just moved. My cat jumped on the table that the camera's on. Hey, get away from the camera, dude. She pulls up at this auto repair shop. He's trying to eat the camera. She has inherited a 3-year-old American Indian girl named Turtle. They kind of become friends, I guess. That's all I know. Sounds interesting. Not something I would have maybe picked, mostly because I'd never heard of it before, but that's why book club is fun. Okay, next up is Pretty Girls by Karen Slaughter. I've never read by this author before. I know she's pretty popular, like mystery thriller. I've heard this one is quite disturbing, so we'll see what I think. Maybe this was a mistake. It was only $3, so that's not too bad. I don't really even want to know what it's about. Kind of just want to go in blind, but let me know if you've read this book or any of her books, if you think I'll like it or not. Okay, the next two I'll talk about together because they're the same author. I just happened to find both of these from different thrift stores. The next one is The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas. So if you remember, if you've been watching since the beginning of the year, I read this in January, I think, and I gave it 5 stars. Thought it was really well done. This is like young adult social justice contemporary fiction, I guess, like African American fiction about a girl named Star Carter who is kind of caught between two worlds, and she witnesses the death of her best friend. He is a black man and he's unarmed, and so it kind of goes into all the after effects of that. It's really heavy, really frustrating, but really well done. And I didn't own it. I think I just listened to the audiobook. So very happy to own this book. And then at another store I also found On the Come Up by Angie Thomas. So I don't think these are connected in any way, but similar genre, similar kind of idea. I think this one's more about like rappers and music, hip hop, something like that. But I really liked her writing, and so I definitely am excited to read another one of her books. Okay, the next one is A Woman Is No Man by Ataf Rum. I think this is like historical / contemporary fiction. It says Palestine 1990 and then Brooklyn 2008. So I think it kind of jumps back and forth, featuring different characters. I don't know if they end up connecting at all. This says A Woman Is No Man is a story of culture and honor, secrets and betrayals, love and violence. It is an intimate glimpse into a controlling and closed cultural world, and a universal tale about family and the ways silence and shame can destroy those we have sworn to protect. The author is Palestinian, I believe, so I don't know if I've ever read by a Palestinian author, so definitely want to read that, and I've heard good things about this book. Next up, I think I've talked about this recently, I found Recursion by Blake Crouch, and this is like a sci-fi thriller. I have never read any of his books, or really a sci-fi thriller in general. I think it has maybe some time travel elements, I'm not sure. I think it deals with like an epidemic, plague kind of disease thing. It's actually on my November TBR. Have I read it yet? No. Will I read it? Maybe, maybe not. At some point. Maybe not this month, but it does sound really cool. Okay, next I found The Last Unicorn by Peter S. Beagle. This is kind of like a classic fantasy novel. This was written quite some time ago, I think. Let's see, 1968. Wow. Okay. We'll see how I feel about this one, but I've heard good things, that it's just like your classic fantasy quest kind of feel, really fun. I assume there's a unicorn involved. I hope we will find out about that. Next up is Seraphina and the Twisted Staff by Robert Beatty. I've read the first book, Seraphina and the Black Cloak, and I really enjoyed it. It's like a middle grade fantasy, historical fiction, mystery, spooky kind of book. It's set in Asheville, North Carolina at the Biltmore Estate, and so I really enjoyed that aspect of it. This is the second book, so I'm not really going to tell you what this one's about, but I'm excited to keep reading the series. Next up, I found You Again by Kate Goldbeck, and this is a contemporary romance, I guess. I think it's based off of When Harry Met Sally, which I haven't watched, but a lot of people love it, so I don't know. I've heard kind of mixed things about this one, but some positive reviews, so definitely intrigued to read it. I want to read it this fall, but time is running out, so might be next fall. I think it's about two people who kind of cross paths a lot over the course of time, and then they kind of reunite, and I think it's maybe an enemies to lovers kind of situation. I don't know. Again, we'll see. Next up is Local Woman Missing by Mary Kubica. I think this was on my October TBR and I still haven't read it, but this is a pretty popular thriller. It's been on my list for a while, just about different missing girls in this town, and then a girl who comes back who had been missing. I think it has like maybe some different timelines going on, so definitely interested in that. Okay, next one is Dracula by Bram Stoker. Mentioned this before. It was on my fall TBR, classic vampire story. Still haven't read it. Again, time is running out for fall reads, so this might get pushed to next year, but a really fun one that I wanted to have on my shelf. Okay, I don't know if I've talked about this one yet. I found this a couple months ago, I think. So this is The Secret History by Donna Tartt, a classic dark academia, kind of one that paved the way for the modern dark academia novel. A modern classic. I didn't realize that. I've heard a ton of people talk about this one, and I've never read it, so I definitely want to check it out and see what I think. Next up, I found The Naturals by Jennifer Lynn Barnes, a young adult mystery. I read The Inheritance Games by her, and I really liked it. And I've heard basically if you like Criminal Minds that you'll like this, which I've never seen Criminal Minds, but I do love a good mystery, and I think this is like a whole cast of characters that have different like special skills, and they kind of link up to solve these crimes pretty much. It's a series. I've heard really good things about this. I'm really excited to read this book and see what the hype is all about. I'm going through these really fast. I don't have a lot of time to film, and I want to go through this quickly, so hopefully this doesn't feel too rushed and chaotic. Okay, next up we have The Dinner List by Rebecca Searle. So I read One Italian Summer by her, which I was kind of on the fence about. I liked it more than I disliked it, and I also have In 5 Years on my shelf that I haven't read, so saw this for like $1, so figured I'd pick it up. I think it's just kind of magical realism, literary fiction, that kind of feel. The main character, she shows up at her 30th birthday dinner, and among the table of guests are her professor from college, Audrey Hepburn, and her ex, Tobias. And there's some other people there, and so it kind of goes through their dinner and the conversation. I don't know. I just kind of randomly picked this one up, so yeah. Okay, next up we have Garden Spells by Sarah Addison Allen, and this, I believe, is kind of a witchy, cozy fantasy, which, you know, that's my vibe for sure. I've heard very good things about this one. I think she's a local author too, which I always love. So this says, in a garden surrounded by a tall fence, tucked away behind a small house in the smallest of towns, is an apple tree rumored to bear a very special sort of fruit. In this luminous debut novel, Sarah Addison Allen tells the story of that enchanted tree and the extraordinary people who tend it. So yeah, I think it's about this family who have this garden. They're sisters, and yeah, goes into their family, but also kind of the magical elements. So that sounds fun. Next up, I have The House on Mango Street by Sandra Cisneros. I probably said that wrong. I'm so sorry. Another modern classic, I believe. It's super short. I've really wanted to read this one for a while and have never gotten around to it. This is the remarkable story of Esperanza Cordero, told in a series of vignettes. It is the story of a young Latina girl growing up in Chicago, inventing for herself who and what she will become. So yeah, coming of age, Latina main character. Love that. Can't wait to read it. Okay, next is a book I've already read and loved, and was very happy to find it because I had borrowed it from a friend. So this is The Things We Cannot Say by Kelly Rimmer. Historical fiction, World War II, but it bounces back and forth from modern day back into World War II times in Poland. It was so good. I still think about it. I'm very emotionally attached to the story and these characters and want to own it. So very happy. I found it for $3, which is a steal. Like, this is perfect condition. Very excited about that. And again, please read this book. If you like historical fiction, I think you'll love it. Okay, next, I might have talked about this one, I can't remember, but I found Percy Jackson and the Olympians from Goodwill. I don't know why I said from Goodwill. I haven't been saying that at all. Yeah, I got this from Goodwill, and it's by Rick Riordan. It's a young adult fantasy, kind of fits in the category of Hunger Games, Harry Potter, Narnia, I guess. One that I never read growing up. It's a big series that people love and thought it would be fun to check it out because it's Greek mythology and YA fantasy. Can't go wrong. Next up is Severance by Ling Ma. I think this is kind of like dystopian, sci-fi maybe, probably some other genre that I'm not thinking of. I don't really know much about this one. I've heard some people talking about it, and this says, is it the end of the world or just another day at the office? There's nothing like on the back that says anything about the plot. This says a satirical spin on the end times, kind of like The Office meets The Leftovers. Okay, yeah, so I guess it has some like satire elements. I love the show Severance. It's not related at all though, so I thought this was like connected to the Apple TV show Severance, which is kind of like dystopian a little bit and a little sci-fi, but they're not connected, in case you were wondering. I think it has to do with a girl who like leaves her apartment and suddenly there's like a pandemic or something. I could be completely wrong though. It sounds interesting though. Next up, I have The Guncle by Stephen Rowley. Definitely saving this for like summertime because that cover just screams summer. I have had this on my list for a while. I've heard that it's really just like wholesome, cozy, lighthearted. It is about Patrick, or Gay Uncle Patrick, Gup for short, or GUP for short. I don't know. He loves his niece and nephew. They come out to Palm Springs, and then tragedy strikes and he becomes their primary guardian. What's not to love about that? It sounds like a really funny, fun kind of book. Now we have the hardbacks. Those were all paperbacks. We still are going on thrifted books somehow. This stack, you should see it. It's quite large. Okay, so we have The Last Time I Lied by Riley Sager, mystery thriller. I've read one Riley Sager, I think, but I know he's super popular. I think this one's about girls at a summer camp. Maybe one of them goes missing. Makes me think of The God of the Woods because there's girls that go missing at the summer camp. There's like a tragedy that happened 15 years ago, and then a young woman returns to kind of figure out what happened. So we'll see about that one. And then this one is The Berry Pickers by Amanda Peters. First of all, love this cover. Very pretty. Kind of feels like a good spring or summer read as well. I think this is just like literary fiction, maybe some historical. Yeah, it's set in July 1962. It takes place in Maine, I believe, and it features some indigenous characters. There's a mystery element and a family drama. This says, for readers of The Vanishing Half and Women of Light, this show-stopping debut by a vibrant new voice in fiction is a riveting novel about the search for truth, the shadow of trauma, and the persistence of love across time. Okay, speaking of The God of the Woods, I have another book by Liz Moore, and that is Long Bright River. So I loved God of the Woods and want to read more of her books, and I've heard good things about this one too. I've heard that it's really heavy, has something to do with like drugs or something. I don't know. That's a very vague knowledge of this book. This says, two sisters travel the same streets, though their lives couldn't be more different. Then one of them goes missing. Another missing person. So one of the sisters is kind of like an addict living on the streets, and then the other is a police officer. Okay, interesting. There's a mysterious string of murders. The cop sister is concerned about her other sister's safety. It goes between present day with their kind of childhood and adolescence. Really excited to read that one. Okay, next, this is a book I'm currently reading. I'm almost done with it, but not quite there yet. That is Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo, her adult fantasy debut, I believe. And this is dark academia, fantasy, supernatural, paranormal, very dark and disturbing. It also has some drug themes as well, interestingly enough. It's set at Yale, and the main character, she is from LA. She had a really like rough upbringing and background, and she's suddenly like recruited to come to Yale to be part of the secret society that's monitoring other secret societies pretty much. There's a lot of weird stuff going on, and she's just getting thrown into it. There's kind of a mystery, a lot of stuff going on with the secret societies. I will save my review for my November wrap-up because I have thoughts, but I'm not done with the book yet, so I can't fully talk about that. And my stack's about to fall over. This is getting out of control. Next up, still from my thrifted haul, this is The Lioness by Chris goodness, I don't know how to pronounce this. Bohjalian? I don't know. This is a historical fiction novel. I think I saw someone talking about this at some point. This says, a luxurious African safari turns deadly for a Hollywood star and her entourage in this riveting historical thriller. Tanzania, 1964, and I assume then some of it takes place in Hollywood. I love historical fiction, so seems like it's worth a shot. Next up is Mother-Daughter Murder Night by Nina Simon, a mystery thriller, fun, fresh, and twisty whodunit about a grandmother, mother-daughter trio who come together to solve a murder. What's not to love about that, right? And then this one I've already read and was excited to find at Goodwill. This is Yellowface by R.F. Kuang, kind of a literary fiction with a bit of a thriller feel. This one kind of took the book world by storm, so you probably already know what it's about. I'm gonna leave it there, but thought it was kind of fun to have on my shelf. Okay, those are all my thrifted books and Little Free Library books. I have a couple new books and then I gotta wrap this up here. So this one I was very excited, and I don't know if this is new. I found it in a new bookstore, but it might be used. But I need to own this book because I've read it twice now, and that is Remarkably Bright Creatures by Shelby Van Pelt. I'm probably gonna read it again one day, so I definitely need to own it, and I just love this book so much. So cozy, wholesome, heartwarming. Had to have it on my shelf. So I'm very happy to own that now. And then next, I've talked about this before. I think this was on my October TBR that I still haven't read. That is Can't Spell Treason Without Tea by Rebecca Thorne. A cozy fantasy steeped with love, kind of Legends and Lattes feel, but a sapphic romance. Well, they're both sapphic romance, so pretty similar. Tea instead of coffee. That's all I'm going to say about that. It sounds very fun, and I'm hoping to read it soonish. And then another cozy fantasy that I have is The Spell Shop by Sarah Beth Durst. The purple sprayed edges are very fun. I've already read this, and I will talk about it in my October wrap-up pretty soon. It's really cute, really cozy. It's about a girl who, she's a librarian, but she has to leave where she lives and move to this island, and she starts over and she opens a jam shop, but it's kind of like a spell shop in disguise, and it's really fun, really cute. Next we have Somewhere Beyond the Sea by TJ Klune. Some more sprayed edges, very fun. This is book 2 after The House in the Cerulean Sea, which I really loved, and so I've been anticipating this for a while. This was one of my books that I got for my birthday in October, so I splurged and got myself a new book. I got both of these from the same shop, so those are kind of my birthday books, I guess. And so yeah, really excited to read the sequel and see what I think. Speaking of my birthday, this was my husband's birthday gift to me, and this is Two Twisted Crowns by Rachel Gillig. I read One Dark Window also in October and really liked it, so really want to read the sequel soon. It's on my November TBR. Y'all voted for me to read it, so hopefully I can get to it soon and finish this duology. And then the last one I actually bought for my husband, but I selfishly want to read it too and think it's beautiful to have on our shelf. He loves this book, and so he's already read it, but that is The Lies of Loch Lamora by Scott Lynch, a fantasy novel. I think there's like a heist or con man situation going on. He's told me about it and I already forgot, but I've heard great things and I really want to read it. So thought it would be fun for him to have a nice copy that he can look at on the shelf, but also maybe I'll read it one day. That is it. A lot of books as usual. Hopefully I can get to a lot of these. I'm really trying to prioritize like my physical TBR. We'll see how it goes. Hopefully you enjoyed my book haul. Let me know if you want to buddy read any of these. I have been loving buddy reads lately and would love to read some of these with y'all if you're interested. I think that is it. Thanks so much for watching. I will see you in my next video. Bye.